Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 18 of Tales from the Quarantine. Last night I hit a little bit of a streak of righteous anger about this quarantine. This is a subject, obviously, that's on everybody's minds. Everybody is stuck inside. But I think that people have. I mean, I think that people have been paying less attention to the science of the virus since the beginning because, well, quite frankly, it's not as pertinent to our everyday lives as it kind of used to be. When nobody knew anything about it, it was obviously sort of more relevant for people to gain information. And therefore, once they had the information about the virus, information about how people were dealing with the virus. So, just sort of kind of channeling the anger that I had last night. Well, if you've ever seen the movie Network, it's from the 70s, great movie. I think what everybody knows it from is this really famous quote, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Which, quite frankly, that's about where I am right now. I have been going between different stages of like sort of resignation and anger about all of this. Not so much that like we have to stay home. That's not necessarily a problem to me. It's that there are people who doubt. Okay, there are people who are actively arguing against these sorts of provisions, and I have to say I think that it's mostly motivated by self-interest. I think that if there's a sort of undercurrent of the debate of what's going on here between social distancing and herd immunity. And I just want to talk for a minute about herd immunity. There is a sort of, and I'll actually link an article with this video. There's a sort of natural experiment going on between quote unquote herd immunity, or at least their version of herd immunity, and social distancing in Kentucky and Tennessee right now. So I believe it was, I'm probably going to get these mixed up, but I believe it was Kentucky that took their sweet time in sort of putting what are now the social distancing measures that are in place. So they waited until basically a few days ago, actually, to start telling people to stay home. They didn't declare a state of emergency until mid-March, whereas most states had declared much earlier. And so Kentucky and Tennessee have relatively similar, they have relatively similar population densities, similar characteristics. One thing that's different is their political leadership. Tennessee has a Democratic governor and I believe a sort of mixed legislature. Kentucky is a Republican-controlled state from the governor to the state legislature. There are about 3 times as more confirmed cases and 3 times more confirmed deaths in Kentucky as there are in Tennessee. And that's because when you break down the sort of like basic science of the virus, it's not that hard. And look, I'm a dumbass. There's a reason that I studied political science and philosophy in college. There are many of them, but a very important reason was that it doesn't include any math. Like I'm very bad at math. The sciences and math do not come very naturally to me. But again, even for me, who's a dumbass, it's a pretty similar, it's a pretty simple concept. When you have a virus that is extremely easily spread, such as the COVID-19, it, in comparison to the sort of common flu, has a spread rate of about 3 to 1. When you have a virus, sort of meaning that if you have one person who has the virus, on average, they're likely to spread it to at least 3 other people. So if you have lots of people who have the virus, you have a limited capacity for testing, so therefore you can't know you can't know everybody who has the virus. So if you have a lot of people who have the virus, you don't know exactly many who, and you know that it's a virus that spreads very easily or very quickly, then it stands to reason that you would want to limit the amount of contact that happens between people. There's sort of varying data that shows how long the virus will stay on different substances, plastic, metal, whatever. And so it stands to reason that, again, even if there are not a lot of people dying, at least in terms of percentages, I think it's something like 16%, which, quite frankly, I don't actually know if that's low or high. If you have the amount, even if you have a generally low death rate, it stands to reason, given that you also have a limited infrastructure of sort of healthcare infrastructure, it stands to reason that you would want to limit the amount of contact because if someone, I don't actually have the coronavirus, this is an example. If I, a person with COVID-19, goes out into the world and just sort of touches things and comes into contact with people indiscriminately, then it stands to reason that lots of other people are going to get the virus. And so it makes sense that you would want to have people stay home or limit their contact as much as possible. Hence stay-at-home orders, hence, recommendations, as the Trump administration is so eager to point out, to wear masks when you go outside, all this kind of stuff. It stands to reason that you would do those things. Those are reasonable measures that you would take in a situation that has the characteristics that I laid out. So you might take the opposite viewpoint. You might say, no, let's just go for herd immunity. Well, that's fine if you had an infinite amount of resources and you didn't care, and if you have no value for human life. So yes, at a certain point, once a certain percentage of the population becomes infected with the virus, there is herd immunity. By virtue of X number of people or X percent of people having the virus, the sort of transferability of the virus is lowered. The sort of group as a whole becomes resistant to the disease, and it eventually goes away. That's great, again, if you had an sort of unlimited healthcare infrastructure and you don't care about the value of human life. Because every projection that is out there, including, and this is borne out in the situation of Tennessee and Kentucky, every situation in which a herd immunity or herd immunity-like strategy is employed, you have more people dying, you have more people getting sick, unnecessarily. Yes, it's true, there are economic costs that comes with social distancing and staying at home. However, I think that as a society, as Western society, we have sort of believed, or we have come to believe, or at least we say that we believe, that the value of human life is more important than economic output. Additionally, well, you can't have a functioning economy if all of your workers are sick. Because if, again, me, the example Daniel, who has coronavirus, goes into work, I spread it to 3 other people who have coronavirus, and even if I don't die, me and most likely the other people that I spread it to are going to be out of work for the next few days to weeks because we are suffering terribly in bed with this disease. So, look, herd immunity may sound great because it gets us back into the world quicker, but the costs do not outweigh the benefits. And to the hypothetical you, even though I'm speaking to a particular person in my mind, you sound like a real jackass, to be frank. And there are people who are more vulnerable in our society, one of whom you know and are very intimate with, who stand at a much higher likelihood of getting sick and having some sort of, experiencing unnecessary suffering with a herd immunity strategy. So please, stop being a jackass. Anyway, that's day 17. I think that I'm going to change things a little bit because, quite frankly, I was even getting bored of my past videos. And it's my life. I don't think that anyone is really all that interested in me sort of half-heartedly reciting what I did that particular day. We're all very aware of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. Mine is probably not much different than yours. But as sort of this quarantine has gone on and my thinking has developed, look, I'm not that special. I'm doing the same thing as everyone else is here. I just think it's valuable. I think it would be more valuable to do something a little bit more interesting. So that's sort of my thinking here, and that's day 18. So happy day 18 to me, and I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully, for day 19, getting close to day 20. Oh, and happy... No, that's not yet. Okay. Yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow for day 19.